Hello, I'm Marcia McMillan. Thanks for joining us this morning on CTV News Channel. We begin in Alberta, where Premier Danielle Smith says her government will hold back funding for new judicial appointments if Ottawa doesn't give the province more say on who is picked. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Smith says the appointment process for judges needs reform. She wants the province to be consulted on future appointments to Alberta's Court of King's Bench, the Alberta Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court of Canada. To fill vacancies, Smith wants to see a special advisory committee created that would consist of 2 people recommended by the province. Right now, there are 3 vacancies on the Alberta Court of King's Bench. The NDP Justice Critic says Alberta's courts are already underfunded by Smith's government, which has been leading to delays. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand will be in Washington today for a meeting aimed at increasing collaboration on critical minerals. Anand and her international counterparts will be discussing the Trump administration's push to lessen global reliance on China when it comes to critical minerals. Monday, President Trump announced the creation of a strategic reserve of rare earth elements to help shield auto and electronics manufacturers from any supply chain disruptions. Turning now to the Capitol on this Wednesday morning as Parliament is back in session. One of the top priorities of the government is passing its new GST credit. While cost of living remains a major concern, new data from Nanos is showing us what other issues are topping the list for Canadians. With more, let's bring in CTV's Jeremie Charron. He's in the Ottawa Bureau. Good morning to you, Jeremie. So Nick Nanos is out with some new information today for CTV, gauging the opinions of Canadians on priorities for the federal government in this new year. What does it reveal?
Yeah, look, Marcia, look, this data from Nanos Research really putting a clear lens on what Canadians are most prioritizing, or what they want to see most the government prioritizing in this parliamentary session. And the numbers are interesting and tell a few different pictures. Unsurprisingly, I think, the rising cost of living is the #1 priority among respondents to the survey. And, Canadians who believe that should be the #1 priority, that has increased from September to December. 26% of respondents, just over that, say that that is the #1 priority, or they believe that should be the #1 priority. That's up 21% from September. #2 on that list, jobs in the economy. 18.4% of respondents believe that should be the government's #1 priority. That's up from 16% in September. And falling a little bit in terms of what Canadians believe should be a #1 issue, or a priority issue, is trade negotiations with the U.S. 17% of respondents believed that should be a priority for the government. That's down from 21% from the last time this question was asked in September. Now, important to note that despite the fact that percentage-wise, trade negotiations with the U.S. is down a little bit, we're still seeing that be one of the top priorities for Canadians for about a year now. Just goes to show, while Canadians are concerned, of course, about ongoing negotiation with the U.S., more of a priority right now are, of course, jobs in the economy, and chief among all of those concerns is the rising cost of living. So, it is an interesting, it's interesting to look at how Canadians are feeling. And while the government has been clear, they're looking at increasing partnerships with other countries in the face of these trade negotiations with the U.S. Canadians would like to see a priority on more domestic issues. There you see the regional breakdown of that #1 issue per province. 38.1% in the Atlantic provinces. So a massive number of respondents feel that is the #1 issue. Yeah. Clearly, people are concerned right now of domestic issues here.
And some people would argue all of these things are tied together. Now, here's another interesting topic that Nanos looked at, and that is floor crossing. So what do Canadians think, which we have seen a few times lately, what do Canadians think should happen if an MP decides that they want to change political stripes?
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, Marcia. Look, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not MPs should be allowed to cross the floor, as we've seen happen now. Chris D'Entremont, Michael Ma, 2 Conservative MPs that crossed the floor to join the Liberal Party, the governing Liberal Party, of course. And there has been a lot made of whether or not that should even be allowed. Of course, it is allowed in our democratic system. It is something that MPs are well within their right to do. But there are questions about whether or not that should be the case, and whether changes should be made to not allow that. And so this survey from Nanos Research for CTV asked Canadians how they felt about floor crossers and what options they should have or what the course should be for them if they wanted to leave one party and join another. And interestingly, Canadians are pretty much split across the board. 33%, so a third, believe they should have to resign and seek a new mandate through a special by-election. Another third, 31% specifically, say they should have to sit as an independent until the next election. And then 32% say things should be, as they are now, and you should be allowed to do so. So Canadians pretty much split across the board, Marcia, interestingly enough, about, how MPs should have to move forward if they choose to cross the floor. Of course, again, important to remind everyone, it is allowed as it stands to cross the floor and join another party, but at least 2/3 of Canadians believe that should not be the case, that it should be, there should be a different avenue, whether it be sitting as an independent or triggering an immediate by-election. 2/3 of Canadians feel that should not be the case.
Jeremie, thanks for all that. We'll check in with you later.